Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Vyshak and I'm super excited to host an amazing panel of stalwarts from the industry today discussing a topic which is of utmost importance to all brands across customer experience in Digital 2.0, wherein which we will discuss how CX has changed over the time. What are brands really doing about it? What does research say? Along with real life examples and stories which all of us could get inspired from. We are privileged to have a great panel of stalwarts with us today to discuss this topic. So without any further ado, let me introduce the panelists and I would like to call upon Anagha first on stage. Anagha, could you please introduce yourself?
Thanks, Vyshak. I'm Anagha Bhojane, and I lead media, digital, and content marketing at Marico, India.
Thank you, Anagha, and welcome. Ananya, over to you.
Thank you, Vyshak. Hi, everyone. I lead media and martech at ABInBev India and part of Draftline team.
Thank you, Ananya, and welcome. Ashvin, if we can hear from you.
Hello, everyone. This is Ashvin Vellody. I lead the Deloitte Digital Experience Marketing and Commerce practice in India. Very glad to be here.
Thank you, Ashwin, and welcome. Harish, over to you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Harish. I lead marketing and product for Sodexo BRS India.
Welcome, Harish. Vivek.
Hello, everyone. I'm Vivek Sharma. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer for Pidilite. For those who don't know Pidilite, we are a billion-dollar company in the field of construction chemicals, adhesives, and pigments, and we have brands like Fevicol, Fevikwik, Dr. Fixit, and Roff. Glad to be here.
Thank you, Vivek. Saugata, over to you.
Thanks, Vyshak, and pleasure to be here. Hi, everyone. I'm Saugata. I look after the digital and content marketing for Tata Communications globally, and pleasure to be here.
Excellent. Now that we have heard from the panelists about their roles and responsibilities, I would like to kickstart this conversation. And I would like to do it a little hotke as such so that we get the participation from all the panelists very quickly. So I would like to start with a rapid fire question first of all to the panel. If you can answer this in 15 seconds, nothing like it. Saugata, I would like to start with you as such. 2.0 means there is a second version as such, right? So is there really a 2.0 of customer? What are the 2 or 3 characteristics of a new age customer in your opinion?
So, Vyshak, the first thing I would say is 2.0 is definitely a reality. 1.0 was more about the tech stack. 2.0 is making the tech stack work to deliver on what the customer expectations are. To your question about is there a different customer, the answer is yes. I think the pandemic has accelerated the customers' expectation levels in terms of what they look forward to from brands, right from the message that gets them to consider a brand to the actual engagement and the actual use that they find when they get the brand in their hands. So yeah, customers have evolved and 2.0 is definitely a reality.
Thanks, Saugata. Vivek, if I can go to you, what are the 2 or 3 characteristics of this new age customer?
First of all, customer has become far more digitally active, whether it is a B2C consumer or a B2B customer. We have seen that. Second is the expectation from the brands is for quicker response and quicker deliveries, and that has been reset again. And third, I would say is customers, especially B2B customers, expect far more customization in offerings because COVID has led to some disruption in supply chains, and they're looking for different products as well and solutions as well. So I think customization as per the need is really a distinct change we have seen in the last couple of years.
Thank you, Vivek. Yes, the expectation is sky high. Couldn't agree more. Harish, what is your opinion? What are the 2-3 characteristics of the new age customer?
Yeah, I agree with Vivek. Digitally active remains one of the top characteristics of this day and age. I think understanding of value is evolving more and more, and it's not consistent. It's about that transaction and what maximizes value during that transaction, which is very key. Privacy, I think a need and understanding of privacy, and it's very subjective. The balancing between privacy and customer experience, they themselves understand very well. And finally, I think hyper local is an attribute that I see. They want to understand what is around them, ecosystem, wherever they are at that point.
Thank you, Harish. The importance of privacy and being hyper-local. Well said. Ashwin, if we can move on to you. What are the 2, 3 characteristics in your opinion?
Yeah. No, thanks, Vyshak. I think for us, I'll base it off of this 2021 marketing trends report that Deloitte just is kind of sharing out with all of the user base and its customers. And I'll pick up 2 themes there. Okay, one is that the essence of what the customer wants today is about choice, convenience, and a fair bit of options that they want to achieve through the digital channel, and obviously online and offline, both channels. So what is happening, we are seeing increasingly in the last few years, is this has doubly accelerated in terms of what the customers are trying to be. Purpose, for example, has become very, very central to the buying decisions across B2B and B2C. And we will see that unfold in variety of ways in the coming months. So that would be one characteristic I'll highlight in addition to what the fellow panelists mentioned.
Thank you. Purpose. Very interesting indeed, Ashwin. Ananya, what is that you have to say about this? 2 or 3 characteristics of this new age customer.
I think customers, consumers generally have become more inquisitive, and they question every aspect of what they are paying or what they are in for. More so, I believe they are seeking more authentic experiences. So because of digital, like they can see through a lot of things that brands and products otherwise promise. So authenticity, right from communication to experience and in terms of value, is absolutely essential for all the brands and companies to keep.
Yeah, thank you for saying that, Ananya. Anagha, what is your opinion? 2 or 3 attributes of this new age customer.
In addition to what everyone has said, I think if I had to add to it, I think today's consumer is a lot more exposed and a lot more researched, for sure. He or she is very sure of what they want. I think they go in knowing what they want, right? That is a big difference today that we are seeing. And lastly, I resonate with what Harish was also saying, that they're looking for brands that they can personally connect with in terms of values, in terms of purpose, whatever it may be, whether it is sustainability, whether it is greater good, etc. Right? But I think that purpose driven is also definitely something that we're seeing more of.
Thank you, Anagha. Yes, it's actually heartening to see that panel agreeing on the values, the purpose, and today's customer being dynamic and easy to lose and digital first. Very interesting indeed. Now let's step into some broader topic as such. And Anagha, I would like to start with you. Now that we have set the context that expectations are sky high, the beliefs are actually changing as such. From the field of marketing, tell us, in your opinion, what are the primary barriers for the marketing department and the CMO in delivering a great customer experience in this age?
See, for me, at least the top 2, 3 things would be, okay, at the risk of sounding controversial, but I think there's also a degree of indifference. I think one of the things is, do I really need this, and do I need this to the full end, is a question I don't think we've answered enough of. And I'm speaking this slightly in generalistic terms, Vyshak. But consumer experience largely is not just about, is there a consumer complaint and how am I readdressing it? But there is a lot more to it, right? It's across the entire journey. And there might be parts in the journey where that indifference might set in. And that, I think, that is what breaks the entire journey and experience. So one is that for me, indifference. Second would be not getting the right technology in place, right? Like we've been talking about tech stacks for a while now, but I don't think anyone's looked at it holistically. And when I say holistically, it's not just technology, but holistically across all departments in the organization. I think it'll only happen when everyone comes together. So while marketing talks about it, sales talks about it, are we talking through every department? Does it across, like even supply chain, does it see merits in it? So I think as an organization, when you start living that customer experience and putting the consumer centricity in place, that is what is critical. And I think that is one of the drawbacks that I see.
Thank you, Anagha, for sharing that. And this indifference and not having the marketing tech and the complete buying as such, very interesting topics indeed. And I would like to tap into the experience of Vivek sir here. Vivek sir, tell us what is your opinion about the same? Is that the top barriers that you see from a B2B and B2C perspective as such? Has the customer journeys changed? What are you seeing from your brand's perspective?
See, the barriers to deliver an excellent customer experience lies in many areas. And I will just take the thought of Anagha and stretch it forward and then add to it. The issue is not availability of stacks or technology. The issue is that how do you implement? Because implementation of stacks is the key issue, because you need to have the right talent to implement it. Once you implement the right stacks, then you begin to get a lot of data across. Are we using analytics from the data emerging from stacks to actually then, what I say, derive personas for customers, persona for consumers, as per the journeys, and then customize your interfaces and customize your offerings. And last but not the least, I think marketing, as Anagha said, is about actually a coordination of various touch points across the organization to deliver the experience. Marketing is no longer marketing department alone. Marketing is product, R&D, supply chain, delivery, customer service, post service, and sales, and everyone else. And so I think the role of a marketing head or a CMO is about conducting an orchestra and deriving music out of it. So one has to perform that role.
Yeah.
And I think the ways of working which marketing has to lead across the organization in this context, they have to change. They have to change because you're implementing stacks, a lot of data is coming. So you have to work as much with the IT department, as much with the field sales, which addresses the customer, as much with sales, and as much, I would say, with their own sales field and customer service or post-sales service. So I think that those are the barriers, and marketers have to go beyond their own, what I call fascination with technologies, to ensure that they conduct this orchestra well to deliver music to the customers.
Yeah. All hands on deck, and the concert master is the marketing and the CMO.
It's not easy, because I think marketers have to drive a culture change. If we have to drive a good customer experience, they have to drive a cultural change across the organization. And it's a long haul. It's not a tech change alone.
True. Long haul indeed. It's interesting that you mentioned about one of the barriers as technology is in abundance, but the implementation and getting value out of it is one of the barriers as such. And we are lucky to have a leader who can speak in depth about this as such. Ashvin, over to you. What is your perspective about this, getting maximum out of technology via implementation?
No, I'll just a few thoughts on that, right? I mean, for every opportunity, you can see it half empty or half full. So obviously, since the question poses on the half empty aspect, let me highlight a few things where, what we see working across a bunch of sectors and industries, both B2B, B2C, in this area. See, as far as marketing goes, and all of the points that Vivek and Anagha and made on in terms of the getting these stacks together and getting the answer, there are 2-3 things also that we are seeing. One is that are we going far enough, or is it delivering to the promise? Requires first and foremost authentic understanding or authentic appreciation of, like, look, this is a transformation that we are in it for the long haul, and that's something that it can't be for optics, it can't be tactical, it has to be long term, and that requires not only the organization or the brand to kind of take this on and execute, to Vivek sir's point, on multiple levels. It requires resilience to sustain this, because ups and downs will come. The concept of resilience, you see many, you can't be a flash in the pan, do certain things, implement a tech, and then wait for all goodness to happen. This has to sustain over a whole bunch of steps that the org needs to take. So that's one. Second, the way to address it, what we are seeing also is sometimes organizations grapple with this in unique ways. Again, they'll kind of say that, look, if the problem is vast, is inaction an option? I want to kind of categorically state that, look, that is not the way out. Like, let everyone else do, and I'll follow after all the kinks are sorted out. Now, in this case, we have seen our surveys and research shows us that brands who are not taking this action headlong are suffering and are getting left behind in terms of their balance sheets and P&Ls. Not just so, marketing has direct impact on company performance. It has to be done authentically, and you can't do it one-off. Resilience is something, a characteristic that we encourage highly, especially in the post-pandemic world and during the part, that how do you be resilient and now how are you positioned to thrive? Even if you see now, I'll just take one more second. Many brands are coming out of this pandemic, hopefully, doing much better, and some are feeling the heat of being left behind. And the question is why? And some of it is in the root causes of what I talked about.
Yeah. Very well aligned to one of the research that we have found out that CX leaders outpace their competition by a large margin, especially after the pandemic as such. Very interesting insights indeed. I would like to change of gears here, and Ananya, I would like to go to you next because you talked about the purpose and the connection as such. And of course, empathy comes as top of list for all marketing, I'm sure, right, as such. So tell us about, is empathy the future of experience as such, in your opinion?
I think empathy is actually the presence, is the present of everything. Like it's in fact the root for even innovation and new thinking and identifying newer gaps. And I believe a lot of brands who have done really well in the last 1.5 years of pandemic have done it because they have identified or associated or related with the customer at an empathetic level, right? One of our very recent examples of a campaign we've done in Budweiser was right at the edge of wave 2. So we were almost prepared with a very high decibel IMC campaign, and wave 2 happened. So one option for us was to just completely lie low and not do anything. And the job's easier for us because if we're not doing a campaign, the teams technically can be free. What we actually did was we utilized our social media for fans and followers as currency for promoting the pleas that were there out there in social for oxygen, for beds, for everything. Now, as a brand, we could have easily chosen a path of remaining silent, right, and not associating. And to be honest, we are not associated at all with anything to do with healthcare and well-being, right? But yes, but I think brands are run by people, and if we don't relate ourselves to our consumers and customers, at a very base level of empathy, then we lose a huge opportunity for long-term, brand building.
Indeed. Thanks for sharing that example. Very interesting indeed, Ananya. Saugata, if I can move on to you as such, right? So in your opinion, what, you come from an industry where, B2B is a large focus for you as such. For you, what is that, top barriers in marketing and content marketing in delivering that expectations of a B2B customer? Because it's not one individual, it's like, it's a brand wherein which multiple individual engages with your brand in a B2B business.
So that's a very good point you make, Vyshak, and it's a genuine problem. Sometimes intentional, sometimes not. Right? I think if I were to pinpoint one singular reason or one cornerstone kind of a situation, it would be the inadequacy of information and the ability to not be able to take it to the right person at the right time. Right? And which is where personalization becomes a key. So since we are talking about enterprise marketing here, right? And I'll try and paint an example for you. Since we're talking about enterprise marketing here, if we start wide talking about a region, right, and then from that region we start to narrow it down into a particular industry, and within that particular industry we narrow it down into a particular business or account or a customer, right, and then we narrow it down finally to an individual. The ability to actually transcend from something as broad as a regional right to compete or right to play for an organization like ours, to be able to take it down right to the level of a segment of one to talking to an individual one-on-one, be it in line with the conversation that are either happening or they're about to happen, or they've progressed to a certain degree, depending on the stage in the buying journey, is, I think, what is a genuine challenge, right? But the good news is that with the right tech, with the right mindset, and empathy cuts both ways, right? Empathy cuts for customers as well as it cuts internally for the organization also, right? With the right mindset, I would say that marketeers today have reached a fair distance from where we were pre-COVID in terms of making that happen, right? So if I were to look at a silver lining from all the catastrophe that has transpired around us over the last now 2 years, right? This is one area where I think we have all, as a collectively, as a team, as a clan of marketeers, have done quite well. So yeah, so therefore getting it down to that level of personalization, talking to a customer about what they want, what they need, and understanding and showing their understanding across to them, I think that is one big challenge that keeps us awake at night.
Very interesting segment of one. We have been talking about that, and it's interesting to hear that the same applies for B2B business as well as such, right? Harish, if we can move on to you. You mentioned about this perceived value of the customer in the rapid fire itself, right? So I would like to hear your thoughts on the changing customer journeys. You mentioned about perceived values and the brand that you actually run for as such. What are you seeing recently now that we are actually on the path to recovery as such?
Sure, thanks. So with the pandemic, I think it applies to all industries, but specifically in the payment space that I represent, we saw a great shift towards digital. So there was an exponential shift towards digital. But what we've been realizing is that the industry per se has been growing. The share of offline might be changing here and there, but there is still offline presence that at a consumer level persists. So essentially, so to give you an example, at the beginning of the pandemic, if you go back and see, right at the outset when these rules got notified, the ones that came first to call to action were your local kirana store owners, right? Because e-commerce could not deliver. The large format stores were still not able to, understand all the norms and put together and open their stores. So the kirana stores quickly moved to a semi-digital play. So you could see them put, those rows in front of their outlets, quickly move to digital, take orders on WhatsApp. They're close to your house. They would know that there is an elderly couple at your house, so they need to deliver. They need to answer your calls. So I think this play between digital and non-digital continued through this pandemic. So while we saw it as digital payments, it was actually more engaging with your hyper-local kirana store. And when the pandemic moves, when we go back to in-store visits, these interactions will move to the offline space, not necessarily online. So there will be a very interesting play between offline and online, which will persist. I think the second thing about the value perception that we realized is when you have multiple modes of payments, and this also ties very well to telecom and industry I've worked in before, where there is the phenomenon of multiple SIM cards. People are always aware where they're getting the best deal at one point in time. So it might be in the payment space where I step up to make a purchase on a transaction, it might be online, offline. I know which of my instruments, which of my wallets to touch at that point in time to extract the best amount of value. So I understand the value of the good, but also the transaction medium to that extent. And the same rule applies to telecom, where I have a multiple SIM card holder and I know which one to recharge at that point in time, so that which one do I use my data from, which one do I use my voice from, and extract the maximum amount of value at the same amount of consumer experience. So this interplay between consumer experience and value is very interesting, because the understanding of value goes beyond only usage and transactions. It goes to things like, how can I self-service more? If I am dependent on you to meet my needs, then in my mind, your value perception has gone down a couple of notches at the same price.
Vyshak, can I add to the empathy with an example?
Please, Vivek, go ahead.
See, empathy is about really understanding where your consumers are and communicating with them and doing things for them which are beyond your brand propositions. So let me give an example. In COVID times, Fevicol proposition is unbreakable bonds. And empathy is all about talking to your consumers in that times of very hard times, about issues which concerns them, about societal issues of what concerns them. So Fevicol has been doing a campaign around this. So when the COVID started, we did a campaign around how we need to maintain social distancing. And we went against a proposition of coming together. And we actually took the logo of our two elephants and put them apart, saying stay apart, maintain social distancing. And when the uh, lockdown opened, then we put out these emotional messages about having the courage to go out and conquer the world and still be cautious through emotional poems done by Piyush Pandey. When the second lockdown happened, then we again did a similar message. But the second point I want to convey is that brands create empathy amongst not only consumers, or brand have to create empathy amongst all stakeholders,
True.
not just by communication alone, but by doing things. So for example, um, Fevicol works a lot with contractors, and so does Dr. Fixit. And we found that contractors were not finding business because consumers were afraid of handymen and these people coming into their homes. So we created safe site practices, and we created videos and modules around them and communicated it to all our contractors online through, through digital mediums. We trained them, we certified them, we gave them aids as to how they can actually go to consumer homes certified by Dr. Fixit and Fevicol and still get business. Then we enabled our contractors to get cash. Cash was in hard supply. They could exchange their points they earned with them for cash. We gave them insurance. We enabled business for them. So the point is, brands create empathy in hard times. And all this was done by Fevicol and Dr. Fixit using digital means. So we use technology to create empathy with the stakeholders by communicating with them about the issues which concern them, societal issues, and doing things for them and addressing their issues in life, not just business alone. So brand have to go beyond business to create empathy. It's not just about business and selling.
Yeah, going beyond the brand's own proposition as such. And I always say this: customer experience. The first word customer is your employee, your partner, your frontline, everyone as such.
Everyone.
Right? Yeah, it's not just the consumer alone. Don't get deceived by that particular word customer.
Stakeholders, because everyone owns the brand nowadays. It's not just only the person who buys the brand. Everyone has a stake in the brand.
True. Now, you brought up a very interesting word in there, stakeholders as such. And I would like to, shift this conversation into internal stakeholders, the leaders within the organization, right? So, organizational partnership, how has that changed? How is the relationship between CMO and CFO and the CIO and amongst the whole leadership? How has that changed from pre-pandemic and now, so that everyone is actually aligned to deliver the promise of CX? And Ananya, I would like to start with you because being the head of media as such, I'm sure you have this interesting conversation about ROI and the budgets and stuff like that. What is your opinion? How has organizational partnership, has it changed to begin with?
So I think, the way I used to put it internally is that while platforms are becoming wall guarded, our internal departments have to lower down their walls, right? So I think that's the first step in terms of just absolutely collaborating, understanding that a CIO or a CMO, a CIO may have a great marketing idea, CMO can have a great technology idea. I think it just just building that bridge that we are in it together, and because for example, a simple product that we implemented right at the first wave of COVID was a beer and alcohol delivery service in Mumbai, because Maharashtra being one of the very few states that allows for liquor delivery. Now, from a very quick, the first part of it was to build a platform. That's where the technology team took a lead. But the second part of it was to sustain and make that platform profitable. Now that's where marketing needs to be a hand in glove in terms of what will the customer do or consumer do on that platform. How will the experience be completed end to end. So somewhere it is actually not if or it's genuinely in all cases an and scenario, right? And I've seen that with pandemic has only made that collaboration more agile and fast forwarded that. I think otherwise we would have been going we would have kept going in our typical inertia fashion. And I believe intent and imagination is also very critical aspect to be worked on by both the verticals or all the verticals together. because I have seen personally across places I've worked at that the collaboration requires, like, one clear intent who we are doing it for. And if that is very clear, I think, and exactly customer consumer experience, like, if that person is at the heart of it, it's much easier to do.
Vyshak, if I may just chip in here out of turn, sorry for that, but just to share to Ananya's point, like one observation that I have had personally, and not necessarily for my organization, but speaking to friends and peers and colleagues across the industry, right? I think what has recently started, not recently, at least for the last 2 years, has started happening, is that the definition of success for an organization itself is evolving, right? And what is happening as an outcome of that evolution is the role that different teams, which perceivably used to play earlier, that is also kind of lines are blurring there, right? So it is kind of becoming a shared responsibility. Success is a shared responsibility as against individual KPIs or CSFs or whatever we call it within respective organizations. That I think is prompting more shake of hands. That I think is prompting, like Ananya said, breaking down of walls. And that I think is actually getting organizations galvanized in the same direction. And again, if I may say so, the reason why this is happening is because consciously, again, going back to the point of empathy, consciously, organizations are putting the customers at the center of everything that they do, right? So that is something that I'm seeing a very positive trend evolving. And, if it continues the way it's going, I think we'll have a very, very fruitful and fertile landscape to play on in the next few years.
Yeah. Putting the customer at the center, of course, that itself changes the definition of success indeed. Okay, changing gears to technology a bit as such, right? So I'm sure all of you are actually evaluating, implementing, taking benefits of, and increasing utilization of technology to cater to all these demands and also this changing world as such. What are top of mind technological trends in your marketing, technological trends in your mind, be it connecting offline to online, be it being more agile when it comes to data, be it tackling and fighting the cookie apocalypse, whatever that is. Anagha, if I can start with you, what are top of mind technological trends and bets that you are actually thinking about as of now?
A couple of tech trends, right? I think one of the things that we've touched upon in every question that we've been answering here is definitely the omni-channel, the offline to offline again. Offline is not going away. Online is not going away. I think just the fluidity of that journey is real. And that, I think, is definitely a trend that we will need to work on. With this, you will also expect a higher human and automation integration. I think the need for automation is real. But the need for human conversations is equally true. That's not going away. So I think the handshake there is something that at least I look forward to. I think hyper personalization is something that is on trend right now. I heard Harish also speak about it earlier. And consumers are getting used to it, right? I think as an experience, as a part of the entire experience, when you talk to me, about what I want specifically, it is a much better experience. It's a much better conversation. It's a lot more human, though there's a lot of automation that has gone behind coming to that point. I think those three are the top three for me, really.
Thank you, Anagha, for sharing that. Ashvin, I know you have lots of insights to share, especially from the recent research that you have done. What are the top of mind technological trends that, in your opinion, that you're seeing?
Yeah. No, thanks. I think that's something obviously we do on a regular basis. The reports that you talked about, which I'll just reference a few of them. And I think, basically the trends that are coming through are, this whole thing, and you talk about that whole the cookieless world. We'll have to see. I think if you have to own customer experience, you'll have to own the customer data. That trend, in its varied form of technology, will every organization and brand will have to act on. If you want to own the experience, you'll have to own the data, and in all its myriad forms, that will see a fair degree of fruition. The second trend is also, or a second observation, and I'll come to the trend, is given there is also, although while there's a lot of positioning to say, look, tech doesn't matter, and you can be on an and conversation. I'll tell you what I mean by that. Like you can buy something and buy something more, and buy a marketing campaign solution, and buy something, and what it has led to, and I'll be curious to hear from my fellow panelists as well, is a landscape that is proliferated with hundreds and hundreds of solution options, both in-sourced and outsourced. And that has led to deep fragmentation of information and aggravated the inefficiency problem in organizations. So the trend that emerges out of that is radical simplicity in MarTech. And that's where we will see some more action coming in. The only question is how many folks will act, to what extent, and some who will sit and choose inaction as an option. And obviously the stakeholders will appropriately recognize those organizations. So that's the second big thing I see coming. Lots of conversation around the space for simplicity. One such simplicity trend is around the CDP, which is an interesting connect. Okay. The reason to make a customer data platform or a verticalized platform is about collapsing these tech barriers and debt. So that's something that will be very, I'm very encouraged. The amount of conversations we are having with all of some of you are on the panel already is just mind-boggling. And lastly, this aspect Harish talked about, but I'll just, is this whole question respecting a customer's relationship and trust. So privacy. Okay, do not disturb the right to information and the right to respect that individual, as you, and I think Vivek, you mentioned it in some earlier interaction as well, that don't just bombard me with lots of things when I don't need it. How do you use tech to make it topical, timely, and relevant? You know, that part, there are lots of aspirational statements, but to make it happen, the path is long still. Okay, so those three, I would say in the next 12 months, we would see some good developments.
Thanks, Ashwin. The importance of investing in data, which is equivalent to customer experience, and the problem of fragmentation, which is real. Thanks for sharing that. Harish, keen to know your opinion about this.
I think, pretty much what the panelists spoke about, but yes, if I have to split it into B2B and B2C, I think importance of automation tools, marketing stacks, which help on the B2B side do the right amount of attribution, helps really define the ROIs better, to move from last mile attribution to first click. You know, that's a big journey and takes a lot of time and investing in the right sort of technology in the back end. On the B2B space, we've also been seeing a lot of digitization of the employee benefits, if I may, because again, as you said, employees are a key stakeholder. So digitizing those benefits and personalizing to the power of one, because if an employee is in a work from anywhere world today, you will not be able to administer a learning and development or a health and wellness benefit for them, which is, you know, driven by you. Give them the power and let them do it at their end. On the consumer side, on building this stack, I think my keen interest is around discoverability. You know, don't allow your consumers to come to you and then go through 10,000 SKUs to find the one that they are interested in. If you can aid that discoverability through building more and more intelligence, lookalikes, some things, you know, association of what they bought before, that helps across industries, I believe, a lot. And also it has to add into some sort of a privacy agenda, as we spoke, because should I be contacted? What is my preferred mode of contact? What times am I more receptive on? And if that can be built in as intelligence with access to data, I think that leads to better conversations with consumers and clients.
Yeah. So anticipating the needs, whether they don't want any communication, along with combined with, you know, you mentioned about another underrated things in my opinion, which is multi-touch attributions to logically divide the pie to actually, you know, to its due creditors as such. Okay, time for a quick rapid fire round as such. Harish, I would like to start with you. In hindsight, what you would have done, let's say, you know, this is FY 19 and 20 before all this roller coaster ride has started as such. In hindsight, if you would have done one thing in FY 19, what would that be?
I think we started on making promoters out of our own employees. But I think that's a more and more important step for us. It puts forth as a brand practitioner or as a brand a person who's responsible for the brand. It helps project your brand in the right way. You know, by putting out the right messaging. Your employees have to be aligned to the brand that you put to. And it also helps rationalize your marketing costs a lot, because your employees have to first speak about your brand, then only your consumers are going to eventually speak about them. So I think building some sort of promotional mechanisms, identifying the right promoters in the organization, and empowering them enough so that they can speak about the brand in multiple forums is one aspect I would have like to start earlier.
Yeah, creating promoters out of employees. Vivek, if I can move on to you, in hindsight, what would you have done?
Very difficult to say. I think what this last 1.5 years have demonstrated to us is that customers and consumers can move at a rapid pace in these extraordinary times, and they often move faster than brands. So what I realize is that perhaps we could have created more capacities and capabilities in digital area across the B2B and B2C businesses, so that we could have taken far better, I would say, recognition and far better leveraging of the situation which existed. So whether it was moving faster with mothers and hobbyists in art and craft area because they were moving digital, everyone's locked up in homes, or whether it was our B2B customers who were becoming far more digitally savvy. We were, of course, in the midst of implementation of marketing automation with B2B customers, automating our dealer order programs, so dealers could order without our salesmen going to them, or whether a site visits could happen digitally. We implemented everything. But I think where we could have done it differently if we had more capacity and capability internally in terms of talent, I think we could have done it faster. I think that to me is the key learning, that we have to look forward. Technology is moving faster, consumers are moving faster, and marketers also have to create capabilities and capacities internally to take, I would say, advantage of these faster moving trends.
Yeah, investing in digital skills and talent. Thank you, Vivek, for sharing that. Saugata, in hindsight, what would you have done?
I'll go a little tactical on this, but I would have wanted to implement conversational commerce way back in 2019, because this unforeseen circumstance of the pandemic would have been a good litmus test as to how that conversational commerce can actually work in the B2B space, especially in enterprise marketing. I've been toying with that idea for quite some time, but for whatever reason didn't get done. But yeah, that's something I would have loved to do.
Very interesting, conversational commerce, of course. Anagha, in hindsight, what would you have done?
I think one of the things I have to say would be jumped on the D2C bandwagon a little earlier. Because with the situation with the pandemic, I think what we ended up doing is playing catch up, right? It was not something that we were prepared for in terms of technology, as well as the entire infrastructure, the back end logistics of it. I think that is, in hindsight, if we had jumped onto that earlier, we would have been in a better position, at least in 2020, for sure. That's one. And second, I think I would be, if I could go back and change something, one would be to do more content and go beyond advertising, right? So I think engaging content is something I think we missed the bus on a little bit.
Yeah, going D2C and content marketing. Thanks for sharing that, Anagha. Ananya, rewind the time machine. You are in 2019. What is that you would have done?
Well, I would have invested in Nykaa stocks, but but yes, I think pretty much with in fact, completely agree with what Vivek said, right? In terms of hiring and training, I think it would have been a brilliant opportunity to reap much more if we would have not just invested in technology, but also invested in hiring and training. It's very ironic because pandemic had caused a massive attrition across the industry. So definitely I think that would have been a good investment at that time.
Yeah, digital talents and skill, and of course, very important indeed. Ashvin, what is that you would have advised your clients as such, in hindsight as us?
Yeah, I think a lot of it got covered, but three things again, just one is, see, a lot of people got literally deer in the headlight type of a situation last year in terms of brands, how they could react and all. So the only thing we would advise is take action. Okay, this is the new normal. First persevere, then be resilient, and then thrive. So this aspect of doing that, some people got caught unawares, and there was a little bit of too much of analysis in terms of what to do. Okay, so that's something that we were continuously advising all our clients to act to kind of. Second thing which I thought we did well, but it needs to keep on getting accelerated, is this theme that has come on and off in this conversation, is embracing all this pace of dynamic change. This thing is no longer about large, lengthy, long drawn processes of decision making and things like that. It's about an MVP style approach to brand, to consumer connects, to control, to all of it. So rather than getting mind numbing detail of every single aspect of the enormity of the challenge, most effective organizations took action and moved, on all of this thing. That I thought went well, but obviously has got accelerated this year compared to last year. And lastly, I think this whole aspect of all-inclusive stakeholder management. Marketing needs to be very inclusive. It used to be perhaps in a certain preserve, as I could see some strains of that aspect being kind of shared by folks here. That inclusivity, both with all stakeholders, internal employees, all of the parts, that can get further kind of bolstered in as we go along. So those would be the things that we were focused on advising, and that kind of maps to what our experience has been.
Thank you for sharing that. One thing I couldn't help but notice is that even though the question was hindsight, all of these things that the amazing panelists said, right? Be it going D2C, conversational commerce, investing in talent, and stakeholder management, and all of them are still so valid, right? And it's not that we have missed the bus or anything of that sort. Put pedal to the metal, and I'm sure success is on our way. I would have loved to have this conversation go on and on with this amazing panel as such, but yes, Vivek.
If I can add one last point on a subject which is very close to my heart. See, we are talking of stacks and MarTech. What I would like to say, MarTech should enable, actually convert the digital, I would say, enthusiasm into digital discretion. And let me define discretion. And marketers, we have to be very, very conscious of that. Digital discretion in the sense that we have so much of technology. We can customize our messages, we can customize our offering, we can reach customers through various touch points. And perhaps we are overloading the consumers and customers. We are overdoing it. Perhaps MarTech should use the technology and analytics to determine when a customer wants to be contacted and reduce the touch points and communication overload. We should use technology to actually reduce the overload of digital communication. Second, discretion should be in respecting the privacy, which we touched upon, but that discretion needs to come far more. So I believe that this technology, while yes, we embraced it, we were playing with it like a child, but that enthusiasm has to convert itself into discretion with better use of analytics, better use of personas, better use of recognizing changing consumer journeys. Less is more in technology, is what I would say.
For sure.
No, I completely agree. In fact, one thing that I will be taking away from this is what Ashvin also called out, right? Radically simplification of tech stack. I think that's essentially what our endeavor, what our milestone is, because a lot of challenges we have, whether it's omni-channel, whether it's offline digital attribution, and these are going to be always on challenges, I think, because customer experiences, touch points, platforms are just new and more are coming in abundance, right? I think it's just the agility and simplification of how we like to build our practice and drive organizational behavior, as Vivek you had also called out earlier, right? So I think that'll be the right attitude to keep.
Yeah, if I can just chip in with one point, right? I think we need to broaden, and we touched upon stakeholders as a topic we discussed. But when we talk about customers, and stakeholders definitely includes that, you should also treat the word customer as both internal and external, right? And one of the very critical components that is evolving out of this whole experience that we've had is how well are we employing technology to enable our employees Because a happy employee, a well, supported, technologically supported employee automatically becomes an ambassador of the brand in many ways, some of which are subconscious, some of which are trained and, thought of. So my recommendation and request to all marketers would be, when you think of customer, don't think only of the external customer. Think of the internal customer as well. And
So,
that,
what Harish and Anagha said, I think we need to infuse technology in offline touchpoints also. See, nothing can be devoid of technology. So much as we love our stacks and much as we love our marketing automation, we also have to infuse technology into our call centers. When my salesman is visiting the dealer, when my field marketing is visiting the sites, I think we have to enable them with technology so that everything actually seamlessly works with each other. I think stitching online and offline is the critical task which we have to now go into digital 2.0, because it's beyond the stacks. Vyshak, if I could add, you asked a question long time back, which I've been thinking about, how the role of CMO has changed, and I would like to give perhaps a different thought on that.
Okay, please.
See, in these times, the role of CMO has changed a lot in the last 1 year in COVID. To my mind, three things have changed.
Okay.
One is that CMOs and head of marketing have to become digital evangelists in the organization. They had to actually convince all parts of organization to embrace technology, whether it was not only about marketing technology, it was about technology in call centers, technology in enabling dealers in being able to order online, technology in connecting with the sites, technology everywhere, technology in customer complaint handling without people being able to go. I think CMOs have to work closely with IT and digital people across the organization. Now, that's the one change I think which needs to happen. Second is conversation on ROI we cannot escape. And COVID has shown us that, because the marketing, there was no plan, and there was no annual plan, there was no half-yearly plan. We were doing marketing as the markets were opening. So it was all zero-based budgeting. We were targeting markets which were open, which were available, segments which were available. We were doing that. So CMOs have to get more used to what I call fluid zero-based budgeting and planning. And they have to become far more agile in managing their budgets and resources. Gone are the days of annual plans, quarterly plans, and half-yearly plans. So, and last but not the least, I think thinking beyond all India into regional and localization, that's the biggest learning I have learned last year, because and technology comes to really help in this, because we can't always use TV and print to target. We were targeting cities as per the way they were opening and closing, and digital is a great medium to do that. So we had to customize the campaigns on the fly. We had to quickly create product offerings or B2B offerings on the fly at a very short notice, and to do campaigns digitally to target a small section of people. So I think localization, ROI, and digital evangelism are the three key changes which CMOs must bring in themselves. And that has been one of my biggest learnings.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Yes, indeed, going from India to Bharat, and CMOs being the linchpin of technology and digital, for in the organization, along with the baseline of ROI and being super agile in this new times as such. Thank you so much to this, sincere thanks to the entire panelists for sharing this amazing thoughts today. This was, I mean, in a sense, it was so insightful. I'm sure the audience has enjoyed all the examples, the codes that were actually shared on behalf of ET, Adobe, and Deloitte. Thank you so much. And I hope we can actually connect again on another panel on another topic very soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vyshak. You enabled a great conversation.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you. Thank you.
Thank you.